Hey, Marni, thank you so much for being here today. We're super excited to have you. I would love if you could tell us what your books are about.
Oh, sure, Courtney, and thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I have a number of books out there. The first book I wrote is a spiritual fiction called God Came to My Garage Sale. And that has won a number of awards and is a big book club book. And so I still am involved in book signings and that with that book. When I retired from my career as a high school special education teacher, for 35 years in the Chicago suburbs, I moved to the Caribbean. And since being here the last 3 years, I've been so inspired to continue writing. And I wrote a 5-book series called True Deceit False Love, which addresses family trauma issues, providing hope and healing to other people.
That's amazing. What inspired you to write your books, each one?
Well, the spiritual fiction, even though it's a fiction, it really is inspired by true events that happened at a garage sale. I was making a big life change. I left a marriage after 27 years. I kind of lost my American dream, went through some very challenging times, but in the midst of all that negativity, I was just filled with love and light and hopefulness and gratitude. And so I had to have a garage sale to downsize. I thought I could stay in my house forever, but that wasn't the case. And at this garage sale, some miracles happened that really kind of changed my view on the world and life and death and the afterlife. And so just like many people who have had spiritual experiences like this, or even near-death experiences, they're compelled to write about it. They're compelled to talk about it. And that's what I did with my spiritual fiction, God Came to My Garage Sale. And then the other series, the 5-book series, True Deceit False Love, came about really with me just doing research on what is domestic violence, what is narcissist abuse, what is parental alienation, things that I was dealing with, but didn't really know a lot about. So I was doing research and I came across so many different terms and phrases that were used, word salad, gaslighting, smearing, just so many things I needed to learn about. And in doing so, I would write down different terms to look up later. And before I knew it, I had 100 terms to look up. And then the list grew to 1,000. And then when it got to over 10,000, I was like, okay, wait a minute here. I'm writing a book. If this is helping me, I'm going to help other people. So the first book in the series, True Deceit, False Love, was born. And then from that, I just found writing to be very therapeutic, just like I find reading to be very therapeutic. And I went on to write some acrostic poetry, free verse poetry, a survivor's workbook, and even a word search puzzle book. So I had a lot of fun when really it could have been a very dark and challenging time. I was trying to make the best of it and rise above the negative circumstances. And luckily, all of my books have been, prominently endorsed. And that's been amazing to me to get that support from people that I actually looked up to, and they were providing me guidance. So those are the books that I am, that are done by me, by myself. I'm with Balboa Press, which is a division of Hay House. So I did a lot of my own kind of editing and self-publishing and promotion work. And then we might get to talking about this a little later on, but I got involved in, I think, about 6 anthology books where you can contribute a chapter or an essay to a larger volume of work, which is a very cool way to kind of get your foot in the writing door.
I love that. When you were writing your books, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your book is for?
That's a really cool question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. And to be honest with you, I was just thinking of myself. When I write, I am not writing with a particular audience in mind. I'm not, writing to market a book or anything like that. I'm just writing for myself. to just get my thoughts out on paper. And that's the advice I give other people that are aspiring writers. Just write for yourself, and the editing and then the, direction, that can all come later, but you want your words to flow. And I think if you have people in mind that would be reading the book, or, restraints that you put on yourselves, I think that really limits you as a writer.
I love that. How long have you been writing?
Well, let's see. I learned to write when I was 3 years old. No, just kidding. I've never been anyone to really keep a diary or write journals. I always was a letter writer. This is back in the days when we didn't have cell phones and messages and, instant ways through technology to communicate with each other. So I was definitely a pen pal for people many years. I would always tried to reach out to my family, my extended family. And even though I didn't always hear back from them, I continued to want to write letters to them to let them know, hey, you've got a niece out here, you've got a granddaughter out here. And, I would write letters. I enjoyed that. When I would get in trouble at school, I remember, was it like 6th grade? I would have to write, I will not laugh in class, like over 100 times. And that happened numerous times throughout that school year. So I got a lot of practice writing that one sentence. So I got extremely creative at one point, and I brought in all my colorful smelly markers. And so I made sure that each sentence that I wrote was with a different color. And, so I enjoyed writing that way. But as far as writing books, I was busy raising my family and teaching full time. I also was a graduate school adjunct professor for 12 of those years. So, of course, when I earned my doctorate degree at Northern Illinois in 1997, so I'm really dating myself here, I had to write a dissertation for that, and certainly throughout my formal higher education, I had to do a lot of writing. But I went on to do postdoctoral work at Harvard and loved writing. But I didn't, that writing was more academic. It wasn't necessarily for the book. So it really wasn't until having this garage sale and having these miracles and really having something I wanted to share with the world that my literary career kind of began as I was leaving my educational career.
I love that. There definitely is a lot of writing in grad school.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, yeah.
Yeah. What made you really sit down and start to write the book?
I think it was just finally when I realized these are not coincidences, and there are so many experiences that are otherworldly. And I think I didn't start out to write it until I did some of my own research. So, I started to attend IANS conferences and meetings. IANS stands for the International Association for Near-Death Studies, because there I could learn about other people's spiritual experiences, just to kind of validate my own, but also to just not feel so alone that I had experienced these things. Sometimes I did have a witness with me that would say, wow, that was really amazing. You should write a book about that, but it wasn't until, really learning a lot more about it when I realized, our voices matter. And, if I could write something about this, not only would it be a fun book to read, I make it extremely positive and very easy to read. But it also could encourage people to kind of realize they might have experienced some pretty cool things that would validate what they did. And I think, we never know the ripple effect we will have with our writing. So, it didn't come right away, but it certainly came after I realized, wow, there were too many to just ignore.
I love that. I especially love that you said ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
What does your schedule look like when you're writing a book?
I don't really have a schedule. I think part of that is because I was so scheduled in my professional career. And then even raising children, I had my children in my life with me until their 20s, And so I was very busy with them and with our family and with my jobs and with just, volunteer work, whatever I was doing. So I was very, very scheduled, So being retired, I'm not so scheduled. But I will tell you that once I get an idea in my head, I can be extremely motivated to want to write even the minute I wake up, because I would have had some ideas the night before, or I would wake up and realize, oh, I've got this thought, I need to put it down. So I don't really have a schedule, but I'm super motivated when I have an idea. Like, for example, I am writing the 6th book of the True Deceit False Love series. I am just taking my time with that and just letting it come when it comes. And I'm not forcing it and I'm not pushing myself. I really feel like even if that never gets published, I'm okay. I have a wonderful, very well received 5-book series, so there's no big schedule. It's just more when I'm moved to write.
That's amazing. Do you need anything in your writing space to help you stay focused?
Well, I like good lighting. I'm very sensitive to kind of dark lighting. And I live in the Caribbean now, and it tends to get darker earlier than when I was in the Chicago suburbs. So I probably do not do much writing, in the evening because of that, because I like to have some bright light. I have a beautiful home office with the most gorgeous writing desk, and I've never sat at it once because I just seem to write on my bed, on a couch, on the floor, sitting outside, looking at the ocean or looking, at a sunrise or something, So there were many times I would write in a car when I was traveling or on a plane, So I guess not super big requirements, but I certainly do like to have bright lighting.
That's amazing. I love that. What is your favorite writing snack or drink?
I don't really have one. When I'm writing, I'm writing. I'm not really snacking or drinking.
Love that. What books do you enjoy reading?
Well, I love spirituality books. I've been drawn to them. In fact, the bookshelf behind me is just loaded with spiritual books, mostly true accounts that people have gone through. Of course, when I was doing a lot of the research for the True Deceit False Love series, I would be looking into self-help books on covert malignant narcissists, and, how to escape an abuser or how to survive the trauma that comes afterwards, after you leave an abuser. So, when I was doing that series, I was really kind of tuning into other people that have gone through these kinds of things and have really made some amazing connections with some of these people. One of my favorite authors is Anne Moreau Lindbergh. She wrote Gift from the Sea, which I absolutely love. That it's a very real, honest book. And I could relate to her as an author. I'm also a fan of Susan Branch. And Susan Branch is this delightful writer and cookbook author and illustrator. She does such beautiful watercolors. So I'm just drawn to the multisensory kind of approach and all the detail that she puts into her books. So I've been a fan of Susan Branch for years, and I was so fortunate I got to meet her. And when my daughter was really, really little, she Susan Branch had this baby book called Baby Love that I just love doing these scrapbooks for my children. And that was one of them. And I brought my little daughter to a book signing of Susan Branch in our hometown. She was coming through. And that was very, very special to meet this author that I had admired for so long. In fact, I just purchased her latest book. It just came out last week, and got an announcement. And I don't care what it was about. She's the kind of author that it doesn't matter what the subject matter is. I'm buying her book. I'm supporting her as an author. So those are the kind of books that I like to read.
Amazing. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
You know, not so much. I would say that, my late mother had a big influence on me. At an early age, she did have me writing, when I had to solve issues, about how to get along with my brother more, or how to make it a habit to clean up my room, or whatever the issue was. She would have me write about it. But she was an English teacher and, an English professor as well. At the college level. So, and then she went on actually to become a news reporter. And so she was constantly writing. She was very witty, always had a way with words. So I would say that really it wasn't really books or authors, but I would say my mom. My mom had a great influence on me.
Love that. That's amazing. What books did you grow up reading? Did you have a favorite?
Well, yes, my favorite was Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. I loved that the characters were animals. I was someone who never even had a doll. I was always drawn to stuffed animals and loved the natural world. And even to this day, I'm fascinated by animals, and I support animal welfare organizations and, just really connect with the soul of animals. But that book, Charlotte's Web, it really had an impact on me. And actually, to be honest with you, I think that was the first book I really read, from start to finish. And to also be very honest with you, it wasn't until I was in my junior high years that I really read that entire book the whole way. So I struggled with reading, and like many people do. And I'm a very slow reader. And, I just really am a thorough reader. But because I struggled, I guess I didn't run to books that often. And so it took a while for me to really get into the love of reading.
I can definitely relate.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if there's something comes out, you're going to get it? I know you touched.
Well, like I mentioned, Susan Branch, she would be someone that I would, pick up her book right away. And there are certain people that I have met on this journey, and I have gotten their books, like Sherry McGregor, who has written a wonderful series for parents that have lost their adult children, and so I'll pick up her books, and she also does a blog, and so I'm constantly reading her current work.
I love that. What would you tell someone who is just starting out with reading again?
Cut yourself some slack and just enjoy it. Don't put, expectations, or timelines, or even say, oh, I have to read so many pages of the book. Just read for fun, and try to get yourself in a state where you're not, you're really not distracted by other things, so that you could really focus on reading.
Amazing. What would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
You can do it. boy, if I can do it, you can do it. And look at all the books that are out there in the world. So, really enjoy the journey of it all. At some point, after you've got your thoughts out, you can take some time and organize and start putting it together to make it look more like a book. But just start out just letting it all flow. And there are so many resources out there when you're ready to look into getting some support. You can take some writing workshop classes. You can go to a writer's conference, I did that a number of times in Chicago, where I would go, even if I didn't have a book, I would go to the writing conference just to see what other people are doing, and, just to meet some agents and kind of narrow down what I would like to do. So there's certainly a lot of books on writing, on how to write. So there's a lot of resources out there when you're ready. But I would just say, try to keep it fun and enjoyable, and don't put a lot of pressure on yourself.
I love that. I would love if you could touch on your experience about writing anthology books.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a very cool way to kind of get your foot in the door with writing. An anthology book, for some of you that don't know, it's a book that's organized by usually one person. And they have a theme for that book, and they invite other authors to come and contribute their take on that theme. And so really the writer is only responsible for one chapter, and they can provide a lot of support or no support, whatever, you work out with them. I'm someone who likes to do my own editing. But there have been a couple of anthology books that they, as part of their process, had their own editor kind of tweak everyone else's work. But so I've been involved in 6 anthology books. The first book was called Evolution of Echo, where it was survivors of domestic abuse writing. And actually, my contribution at that time, I was still sort of in a state of fear and shock of what I had gone through. So I made it an anonymous essay. But it is clear now that I'm the one who wrote that essay. But I wrote it from an abuser's point of view, as opposed to a victim or later survivor's point of view. So that was very healing in a way, to just kind of try to get into the mind of someone that you don't, align with at all. Your values are so different. You can't really think like a criminal if you're not a criminal. So it's kind of exciting as an author to try to put yourself in someone else's shoes and try to think about what they might say. So that was, one anthology. I got involved with Blue Talks Presents. Blue stands for Business, Life, and Universe. And I'm in the 2nd volume, and I think there are 9 volumes out now. And that's kind of like TED Talks meets Chicken Soup for the Soul. So it's very much like variety of different topics, but it can also include spirituality. And so I contributed an essay to that. I think that one was like going from an atheist to a believer, and I wrote about that experience. I'm also in a best-selling book called The Last Breath, and most of the people that wrote and contributed to this book were psychic mediums, or they had some sort of kind of intuitive gifts. But I wrote from just my experiences with spirituality, so I could kind of, piggyback on my first spiritual fiction, but, condense it down so that I could just contribute a chapter to this book, which was neat. I just, there's a Passing the Pearls book, which hasn't come out yet, but that's talking about our mothers and our grandmothers and the influences that they have on us. That's by Tammy Morrison. And then Anthony Murari, he's out of Athens, Greece, but originally from Kenya. He's actually putting out a book on how to write and publish a book. And so he asked me to give kind of advice on what to do if you are starting out to be an author. So these anthology books are very neat. That oftentimes they do involve a little bit of an investment because they are doing all the work. They are doing all the publishing. They're getting it to a best-selling status. You know, one of the ones one of the anthologies I did actually got me into the International Bestselling Authors Organization because I was part of this amazing anthology called We're All in This Together. And so that was extremely cool to be part of that, and to be able to be part of a larger community that's contributing their thoughts and ideas.
That's amazing. I really love that. Would you be able to touch a little bit? You talked about endorsements. Could you explain that a little bit more to everyone?
Yeah, well, an endorsement is when someone reviews your book and writes one or two sentences or even a paragraph, hopefully positive. I think that's what you would keep are the positive ones. And all of mine have been positive, but they support your work. And an endorsement can really help you go far. So like, for example, in my award-winning book, God Came to My Garage Sale, the endorsements were so significant that I actually put them on the cover of the book. James Redfield, the best-selling author of the Celestine Prophecy series of books. He wrote The 10th Insight, his book became a movie, that type of thing. He is so very well known in this literary circle and has been for decades. And it was such an honor that he endorsed my book. And I think you just have to kind of go out there and ask, take the risk. I took the risk when I met him in the Chicago suburbs at a workshop, and his first response was, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't endorse other people, and but I really wish you good luck in what you're doing." Okay, but I didn't totally take no for an answer. He was so very kind, and we had developed a little bit of a rapport over this workshop. And I said, "Well, listen, James, I'm going to give you my manuscript, and if you're on a plane, and or if you have a little free time and you want to glance it over, that would be great. But thank you so much, and I totally understand." Well, 2 months later, he called me back and said, "I love your book. I'm endorsing it." So, you've got to be persistent, and kind of that taught me to kind of, shoot for the stars, to go. If you feel like, hey, they're too unapproachable, they're too famous, they're too, they've written too many books, still just, if you think that your book relates to what they do or similar to your book, I think just go for it. And I went on and got so many endorsements for God Came to My Garage Sale. Even the president and founder of the Chicago Ions endorsed me, which was major. And then that led to having the president and founder of the Santa Barbara, California Ions writing my foreword to my book. So that was extremely cool. And then when it came to the True Deceit False Love series, I had been doing so much research to understand this abuse and trauma and alienation. And so many of the people that I would turn to, whether it's their video blogs on YouTube or their books or their research, that really impacted me. So I thought, I'm going to reach out to them. And one of the best endorsements I got was from Dr. Jennifer Harmon. She is a leading researcher and expert out of Colorado, having to do with parental alienation. And her research has really helped me personally understand, what this is all about, and to be able to, carry on after experiencing this. But she found value in my books and endorsed me, as well as Dr. Sam Vaknin, who actually coined a lot of the terms that I used. He is, the one that has contributed to the literature, to the academic research literature in this. He ended up writing a foreword of one of my books. So I just say, endorsement support can be very, very helpful in getting your book out there, connecting with others. And I would just say, just, if there's someone that you would love to have endorse your book, just go for it, and what's the worst that can happen? They can say no. And even if they say no, you never know. Like in my case, you might get the endorsement.
That's so amazing and cool to experience. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Well, maybe that I lived in Athens, Greece as a child for a year, and I went to Greek school, and I just had that whole experience. It was pretty profound and really impacted me throughout my whole life. It kind of prompted my love of travel. So I would say that. I mean, more on a recent level, I'm getting pretty good at catching boa constrictor snakes. Okay, that's something I never thought I would do. But living in the Caribbean, and I'm up in the rainforest on many acres, and even though boa constrictors are not native to the U.S. Virgin Islands where I'm at, they certainly are here. They were brought in, and I think I have nabbed my 23rd boa. So that's something a little unusual. Oh, yeah.
Was there anything else you would like to say or add today?
Well, just, Courtney, thank you for doing what you do, having this platform where authors can talk about writing and, readers can talk about books. And just, your love of books, I know, has driven you to go to, all the efforts you're doing to have a podcast like this. And that's pretty cool. And I just thank you for your interest. And to your listeners and viewers out there, if you are interested in writing a book, you can do it. And there's certainly many wonderful books to read. There's just so many different genres, and it almost seems like there's new genres being coined every day. So it's, there's a lot out there. There's a lot out there, and reading is just good for your soul.
I love that. Thank you so much for saying that. Where is the best place for readers to find your book and the best place to connect with you? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option?
Yeah, the best way to contact me is really on my website, which is www.godcametomygarage.com. I'm not on social media. I wanted to, spend more time writing and reading. My books are part of many book clubs. And so if it's part of a book club, all of those are signed copies. You can also find my books at numerous bookstores all over the nation, and actually even international now. So, there are many spiritual stores or independently owned bookstores that carry my book. Mostly the God Came to My Garage Sale book. But of course, I can be found on Amazon. I have an Amazon author page that lists everything. And I'm on Balboa Press, and then that's the division of Hay House, as well as Barnes & Noble.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience and your story. And we will make sure to drop the links in the show notes. That way everyone can find everything.
Oh, well, Courtney, thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity. And it's just, if we can get the world reading, that would be great. And get them writing as well, we would have a lot more healed individuals, because writing is very healing.